June 26th Board of Public Works meeting to order. So first is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence. Thank you. So, roll call. We have all 4 or 5 members of the board, myself, Barbara Curtis, Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, and our newest member, Bob Heffernan. Congratulations and welcome, Bob.
Yep.
The ex officio, the mayor is out this week. Tim Ritzert is here in his stay. Austin Calaman, Robin Davis, and Mike Hoffman, our legal counsel. So first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any questions, or do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's 5-0. Thank you. Infomart, Jeff?
Good afternoon. So first thing, an update on the Headworks project. We did have the shutdown of the flow. During that shutdown, we installed the baffle for the 5 mil and the Pistogrit. The Pistogrit, all of the equipment except for the screw conveyor is on site. Most of that is installed. The panels are being installed currently. They do still have to be wired in. The screw conveyor has just gotten pushed back again to mid-July. So we're hoping the Pistogrit will be up and running the start of August.
Do you know why the delay?
Smith & Loveless has pushed it back several times. It was supposed to be the start of June, then it was mid-June, and I just found out today that they just pushed it back to second or third week of July.
That's not the only piece from Smith & Loveless that we've had a delay on.
No, that's just the piece that we're getting the most delay on right now.
When you talk about baffle, is that the chute that you were waiting to be?
No, so we have a baffle that was installed in the channel. During low flow events, the baffle will keep the flow at a certain rate to allow the Pistogrit to work properly.
So they actually shut the entire collection system down for a period of, the original thought was like 4 to 6 hours. They were able to complete it a lot faster. Still got some high levels in the system itself, but no issues with install other than that one piece that they have to do another.
There was a drop plate that goes in. It doesn't fit exactly in place.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seat properly. Smith & Loveless is going to refabricate that piece and send it out, and then when that happens, we're going to shut down one more time and replace that piece.
And they did it in the middle of the night. No
Okay.
issues. Great, M2 is a great contractor.
So what's the story with the chute that you're waiting on?
The chute only got pushed back. Marvel is completing that. That got pushed back due to the uncertainty of a Vivo versus the JWC screens that was discussed.
So you've got, this is Q3 2024. Is that like early Q3 or end of Q3?
As of right now, the date that I'm getting, that I was just told today, is they're hoping for a September 1st completion date.
Recording in progress.
That's also assuming that we get some feedback on the screens
So
with the control panels.
the screens, as of now, what was just discussed today, a Vivo is what they're going with. The motors will be here July 15th. A Vivo will be on site from July 15th to July 29th, 2 full weeks. to help with the screen rebuilds. The panels are being done by a separate company. Those should also be in, I believe, the middle of July or the start of August, as of right now.
Yep.
And as I said, we're looking at September 1st is the date that I've been told as of right now.
Jeff, what about the EQ influent pump? Has that been,
That, one of my operators mislabeled that. That's not the EQ influent pump. So I had a discussion with him about that, and he mislabeled it. It's not that. We had an issue with one of the mixers in the EQ tank. It still operates. We just need to weld a piece onto it.
so it's a mixer?
Yes, it's a mixer.
Okay. Thank you.
The filters, we completed a hypo and acid recovery clean on train 4 during the week of June 10th. After putting the train back in service, there was a spike in the turbidity. We found that was caused by some debris in the lines going into the turbidity meter. So we have since replaced the lines on all 4 trains with new tubing. And a hypo clean was performed yesterday on train 2, and we are currently in the process of an acid clean right now. So that'll be coming back up tomorrow for train 2. Maintenance and chemical building, the structural reinforcement is completed. We are keeping the supports, or M2 is keeping the supports in place for an additional week to make sure the concrete cures properly. But as of right now, it is done. They're just going to leave those up as a precaution.
And the 5-ton crane,
I have a meeting that I'm scheduling with Charlie to go over that proposal from the crane company.
moving backwards, pump station 4. The other night I was walking by there and it was a little bit on the smelly side and it was gone. So, is the, because I see you said that the biofilter was serviced.
Yes.
Do you know when that was?
So we have that serviced. It was maybe 3 weeks ago. We had the service come out. When we went to do an inspection the other day, we did find that the pump had lost prime, so we reprimed it. That might have been it, but the bio air has been running for the last several weeks.
Yeah, because this would have been like the latter part of last week.
Yeah. So like I said, we were doing pump station inspections, and they found that pump, there's a pump in there that pumps nutrients into the biofilters, and that pump had lost prime.
I walked by the other last night, and it wasn't smelly, so.
On June 13th, we did have Kubota come out, and we had a crane and forklift on site. We pulled both of the Kubota membranes, inspected them, and had multiple samples pulled out by the rep who was on site. He sent them back to Japan for analysis. We should get a report from them in the next few weeks to give a life expectancy and condition of the membranes. As I stated, the BioAir was repaired at Pump Station 4. Pump Station 18, which is Drake Knoll, we've been working to upgrade or update. The octopus that's in there is deteriorating and falling apart. So we've installed an outside of the wet well junction box. We have not pulled the wires just yet, but we're going to replace the pump. We have a backup pump we're going to put in and have both of those pumps serviced and run new wires from the junction box to the control panel and put in new floats. The wet well piping at PS1 for UD was also completed. We had a minor hiccup that night, but Caswell came back out and repaired it, and everything's been good since. And the liquid sludge loading connection and the foam pump modifications have both been completed. Both of those seem to be operating fine.
Good, great.
So two of the questions, and one is for GMB, the building louvers. Where do we stand with the building the building louver issues.
That change order has been processed and we've worked through that, so.
Okay. And an estimated timeframe?
I believe it's August.
And there's no Suez report in this one. I'm not sure that I saw a Suez report or this last month.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have it in yours?
Well, Veolia, is
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
So they send out a weekly report now, and the bi-weekly report we didn't receive until after we submitted
Oh, but there's your,
the report to us.
It's a different format.
yeah, I mean, she said, so what's in here now is just the data. They used to give
Yeah.
their analysis of.
Yeah,
this is-
the biweekly report, that's what we have, the more comprehensive breakdown. This is the weekly report that we have in this package. We didn't have the biweekly report at that time, but we do have that now.
Because, yeah, I'm used to seeing 2 bi-weekly reports in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can get that added back in
Yes.
future packets, great. I didn't know if it was a connectivity issue again with Viola. Any other questions on the wastewater treatment plant operation? A motion to approve or accept?
You don't have to, you don't have to do a vote for that.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. Moving on. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
Take care, Mike.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay.
So it was, next up is President's Report. It was a short month, so attended City Council, the leadership meeting with the city, the grant committee with Amy Marasco, who I really have to thank. Amy came forth as an education program to both the city and the BPW on what the process is for applying for federal grants and what grants might be out there. So, and we met with the county on the wastewater treatment facility. So the rest of it will be covered, I guess, in Austin's report.
Ready?
Ready?
So Teal has actually made some pretty tremendous progress out there at Donovan Smith. They're doing a lot of water service installs. Primarily, they're doing sewer installs right now. They're really making progress on the water installs. I think they were potentially going to shoot for Labor Day for maybe having everybody hooked up. It's not, obviously there's a lot of factors that go into that, but they're making very good progress. Obviously, the contract length has them going to November, so they may, push longer. It could be shorter. It kind of depends on how the efficiency of the group that's out there is doing. And then obviously they have the restoration, the paving, all the restoration and paving throughout the whole development. Then moving on to the Headworks project, obviously we did the change order for the louvers that Jeff just mentioned. So we're moving forward with that, and then we were waiting on the feedback on the screens, which it sounds like I did get a call when we were in our executive session from Vince, so I'm assuming that's what it was for. So work continues on that. The low flow baffle was installed, like Jeff had said. And then BPW staff and GMB staff worked on submitting the final applications for both the Hornkill and 4th Street. So that was sent off last week. So the end of last week, both of those were submitted off to the state. Hopefully get some sort of response back in the next month or two. I'm assuming it'd be at the next WEAC meeting, which is quarterly. Yeah, so September, we'll probably get some feedback on that. So fingers crossed. As Tom mentioned, we did, attended the city council meeting, city council workshops. The water department finished up all their videoing and investigation of the stormwater infrastructure needed for the Pilot Town Village city project. So that was all handed off to GMB through a thumb drive. So that was taken care of. I believe GMB's taking a look at it to see where we're gonna land with what the BPW portion of that project may be. We also did all of our mailings for LCR and UCMR 5. We've been doing a lot of mailings lately, so we apologize for the mass mailings, but we want to get as much out there as possible, and a lot of that was done by Sharon and the rest of our staff. So I want to thank her on that. And then we did secure the PFAS funding that we submitted for. I think it was $450,000, Ben. So we're working on that. We should be getting the closing documents for that grant through Saul Ewing. So fingers crossed that comes through here pretty soon, and then we can get cracking on that. Like Tom had said, the grant subcommittee met. I think it's going to be a terrific group. Barbara and Richard are both going to attend, and it's going to be kind of an internal city BPW looking at grants, how we can help each other and identify ones that we can go after either collectively or individually. GMB also attended those meetings, so I think that's going to be a huge thing for us since we don't have grant writers on staff. At least we can collectively utilize the talents we have in the city. I think I hit on everything.
What,
All about parties. Never mind. It's not critical.
anything about the park?
State Park?
Yeah,
It's, the discussions continue, but it's not, we haven't seen a design or anything like that.
okay.
Anything
All
else?
right, anything else? So moving on. New business. Open forum general discussion on the selection of members for the finance committee. Richard?
Board had set up the finance committee to be composed of 4 BPW ex officio members, 1 city council ex officio member, and 3 citizen volunteers. The proposed members that we are putting forward are to be in place till the end of this fiscal year, which will be at the end of March 2025. And it's Austin Kalaman, Kimberly Belair, myself, Bob Heffernan from BPW, Amy Marasco from the City Council, and Mike Hogan, Calvin Jabber, and Carolyn Jones from the Citizen Volunteers. And these I would like to propose to be accepted for the rest of this fiscal year.
Discussion? Have a motion? I guess that Richard made the motion.
Yeah, I'll second the proposal or motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I really want to thank everyone. I mean, the Finance Committee has really done a great effort, and I think you've got a good foundation for moving forward.
Yep.
Open forum and general discussion on ex officio member from BPW to the Lewes Planning Commission. So I guess, can I nominate?
You cannot make a motion. You can put a name out there and have somebody make a motion, but you cannot make a motion.
I would suggest that Barbara Curtis remain as liaison to the Planning Commission. Do I hear a
Barbara,
motion?
accept?
I was going to say, is that okay with Barbara?
happy?
Okay.
I think it's a great idea.
Way to sell it, Barbara.
Yeah.
Then I make a motion that we accept the suggested ex officio of Barbara.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And, of course, ex officio, those are subject to change, so we can revise down the line. All right. Open forum general discussion on BPW mitigation committee. So I know press has sent out some information and
Well, the other thing,
requests.
I haven't come up with nominees because I don't think we're going to be active anytime soon. I think, and I'd like to input, I got some from Tom already, but about what we could look into if we really wanted to continue with mitigation committee on issues. I haven't come up with any issues that, I think we're waiting right now to hear back from the city on what it's going to do with its committees that impact our future designs and schedules. Things like floor drains and toilets and things like that, things that would interface with us but are really city issues, building commission, building committee issues. Does anybody have any items that they think the mitigation committee should be working on at this point? From my standpoint, I thought we addressed what was the intent of the committee.
If I can just so structurally, the way that this is set up is it's a standing committee. And so as a standing committee, you would need to nominate and have it staffed and meet as a standing committee. But to Press's point, if the board looks at this and says, well, maybe shouldn't necessarily be a standing committee, but when a need arises, we can have an ad hoc committee. And so that's really up to the board. If you think that there is work you would like the committee to do, and it's work that you would like the committee to do, and you foresee a continuing need to have a standing committee, then we can add to that work. Alternatively, if the opinion of the board is that you'd rather it be an ad hoc when issues arise, then what we would want to do is entertain a motion to disband the standing committee. And then just when a need arises in the future, you can do an ad hoc, and that's the will of the board.
So, one of the items that Press and I discussed is, I think the mitigation committee did a fantastic job determining sea level rise, those type of aspects.
And locations of our key components and the schedule for upgrading them and so forth.
Right. But the area that's becoming much more pronounced and is in all of the engineering press and is at the engineering conferences, is the hardening of our electrical system. For coastal communities, this is considered to be extremely high risk, not to mention cyber attacks on them. But just on the physical assets and with the influence of hurricanes, tornadoes, the torrential rains. And so I think personally, that's the one area, and it's not, as Press pointed out, it's not that they're going to do the design work, but to compile the information around this to present to the board.
Yeah, but I don't know that anybody on our present committee, or I don't know of anybody other than perhaps yourself, that has the background. So we would have to identify, and as we talked, maybe we contact the consultant that we've been working with, and we could assign a task to them to prepare the information rather than us having a committee to oversee. Because unless we find committee members that are knowledgeable that would help make decisions, I
Yeah.
don't know that we should reconstruct the
Yeah, and so,
It sounds like what you're looking for is a different focus. And that would be different members, or you'd search for people with possibly different backgrounds. And it could be a separate committee or an ad hoc committee, but the original mitigation committee focused on storm threats and
Sea level
water and so
rise.
on. I don't know did you ever
Global
really
warming.
accept a report on that? And did we ever say we're going to build to 11.64? I
Yeah,
think we did.
The board never accepted that recommendation. That recommendation was never presented and adopted by the board.
Okay, so maybe a thing to do is decide whether that should be wrapped up that way and present it as, okay, Austin, from now on, build to 11.64 or harden below that on anything reducing to water. And then make a new committee that's got some electrical focus to it.
and so we've discussed, going back to Sergeant Lundy, they did the best they could without AMI. AMI is key to
Sure.
building anything. One of the things we talked about was we are going into the goals, for the organization going forward. And to see what came out of that. And Austin, refresh my memory, when do we expect to hear back on the AMI grant?
I believe they were shooting for potentially third quarter, which would be third quarter calendar year, not fiscal year, which, would land us pretty close to getting into that third quarter.
Because I personally think, from my background, that we really need to take a hard look at electric vehicles, storm hardening, all these different things. The systems were never designed for what are around now, and every place else in the country. And frankly, you go to these engineering conferences, and regardless of whether you're the city of Los Angeles Public Power, or, Navajo Nation, no one has a good visibility. So, but I don't want us to be taken aback on that.
So would this reconstituted committee be looking at solar infrastructure? Would they be looking at burying electrical lines? Would they put together a priority list? Would that come out of the strategic plan? Would it,
Yeah, but I mean,
all the above?
yes, I think we've kind of exhausted, with Sergeant Lundy, things like the solar capabilities of putting in a solar farm. We don't have enough land. So, I think some of that stuff, in the original Sergeant Lundy report but the hardening, the susceptibility, the increased use of EVs, and the fact that no one knows where the heck they are, those things are the things that have the industry mostly impressed. So I guess I'll put it out, and Bill, maybe if you can get this out. We know lots of people in the water and sewer industry, even in town. But frankly,
I know somebody
feel-
to introduce you to.
who's that?
I do
Okay.
know somebody to introduce you to, anyway.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a lone wolf out in this community, If water, sewer, stormwater, environmental, there's lots of people to tap into.
If we're going to form a committee, we need more than one person, of course. Maybe we could network with him about who else is in the field. But I guess I was feeling that a report from Sergeant Lundy an organization that could do that type of reporting back to us.
See,
And
I'm not opposed, but I'm not sure going to Sergeant Lundy without AMI data
yeah, good.
is
yeah,
a good spend of money at this point.
Right.
You know, we've gotten it, and I'm fairly comfortable
But
with the Sergeant Lundy's report in the margins, but we're going to be encroaching on it.
I think I'd love to talk to who you're thinking about, but I don't think that setting up the mitigation committee to address that is going to be productive, because unless we can identify other people I mean, if Sergeant Lundy can't do it, certainly a committee that we put together won't be able to do it either, for the same reasons.
Correct, except they could help influence some of the policies that we're taking on. So,
You can table this. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
need to make any decision this
Yeah, I don't-
evening.
I think this is more about, getting input from everybody.
Well, if we're standing
And I understand
committee,
where Chris is
are we in
coming from.
jeopardy if we don't appoint people?
Yeah, I mean, you technically, jeopardy is,
I mean,
you have a committee and that committee needs to be staffed. And that committee has an obligation, if I recall correctly, to meet at least 4 times a year. And so, you can defer, but at the end of the day, for that committee to meet its charge, it needs to be, their membership needs to be named and they need to meet at least 4 times a year. And so I think that's the threshold question. And again, to the point, you can table this until next month if you want to give it some further thought. But I think the threshold question is, do you want the mitigation committee to be a standing committee? That's question 1. If the answer is no, then the second question is, do you want to establish an ad hoc for X purpose? I mean, that's really the question before the board.
I guess I think it should be ad hoc going forward. I don't think we're going to have enough to do to call people together without having people to populate the committee. As it stands now, with 2 of our main committee people are on the board, and they can't be part of the committee according to our resolution. So even populating it with the people that we had, I'd still have to identify other people, and then I don't have too much information or too many issues to be working on for these people. That's why I didn't make an effort to identify them, because I didn't see us being active enough to.
So is this 1 motion or 2 motions?
It can be 1. And so if you just want to address the first question as to whether the standing question, that's 1 motion, and then you can defer on creating an ad hoc. That can be a second motion. But I think the question before the board right now is, should the mitigation committee be a standing committee? If the answer is yes, then there's no action that needs to be taken. The charge needs to be staffed, and then you move forward. If the answer is no, then there's a motion to disband the mitigation committee.
The only thing before you make your motion is, I understand it's a different expertise, but there's so much work that your guys did relative to the areas at risk. And while that's not hardening of the lines, it's all the pad-mounted transformers, it's all the electrical infrastructure that's at grade.
Right.
And it would seem like some of those people should be part of it, so we're not reinventing the wheel on why we chose, 11 point, whatever the number is. 11 point.
You're saying collect the database, not unlike what they did the first time.
Right.
And have that, because anyone coming in from consultant or outside or whatever is going to say, well, where are the transformers?
Well, and
We
remember,
have that. We have those locations, of course, identified.
and then that formal recommendation piece that would be like a board adopting of it, that getting implemented into our standards for GMB to use, depending
So,
on what
You know,
utility.
getting back to the first issue, I guess, since we did bring the information that the committee developed to the board for information, if we don't have a standing committee now that's functioning or appropriate, could I, as chairman, make a motion to, or bring that to the board and say, to get that on the record as something the board approved?
Well, so just on that point, so the mitigation committee did make a report to the board.
Right.
And did report its findings, and so that puts it back in front of the board. And so there isn't anything else that's needed. In other words, you did your work and you made the recommendation. It's up to the board as whether the board implements the recommendation. That can be done with or
Put that
without
on the
committee.
agenda at the next meeting?
You could do that.
Just
Yep.
do that.
That's right. But you don't need the committee to do that. The committee performed its work and made its recommendation, or made its report.
The one thing I question that may still be appropriate for the committee is, we looked at the emergency plan, and it seems like that's something that should be looked at maybe on an annual basis. Last exercise, we had the joint exercise was not very satisfying.
How would you put it, Robin? We made some significant updates to the emergency response plan. From a staff level, we made some pretty,
You seen that?
No.
it's like, it just got complete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
pretty, it took a lot of time, I will tell you that.
So it's ready to bring back to the board to approve, and we don't need to reconstitute the committee to make that.
No, I mean, we can bring that back.
Yeah.
That was more of a staff level in conjunction with the city, because the city was doing their emergency response plan. We worked through a lot of different items, and we're technically, if I'm correct, we're an annex within the city's emergency response plan. So we created our own section instead of just referring back to, we followed the city's emergency response. We physically now have an annex within the city's emergency
Okay,
response.
I mean, I saw a draft of that and commented on it. Is it ready to bring back to the board to
Yeah.
get it approved, so we can put that on the agenda?
Thank you.
So I think what I'm hearing is that technically we can disband the mitigation committee, if that's the will of the board.
If that's what will work, that's right.
And we could take it up next month to, not accept, but to determine action items from the recommendations.
At any point in time, it doesn't have to be next month, but the ball is in the board's court to take action based on the recommendation whenever the board sees fit on that.
And then, is there a consensus on the need to refocus onto the electrical side?
Well,
In whatever format it is. Yeah.
I was going to stay with the existing recommendations. And the
It
reason-
sounds like we don't need any motion on disbanding the standing committee.
If you want to keep
already
the committee,
exists.
you have a committee that has a charge, and if you're going to keep the committee, then you need to update the membership of the committee. And so that's the.
And have the meetings.
And have the meetings, and it remains as a standing committee, meaning it exists, so every year it has to meet its charge and it has to meet. If you don't see the need for that ongoing, it'd be a motion to disband. Then if you wanted to have a committee to look at a specific issue, you can form an ad hoc committee to look at a specific issue and make a recommendation on that issue. The difference between a standing committee and an ad hoc is a standing exists just like the finance committee. So it exists every year, you have a charge, you're looking at it, and you meet regularly per that. Whereas an ad hoc has a specific charge to make a recommendation. And if you think that the committee's purpose is more to address a specific charge as it arises, it makes more sense as an ad hoc. If you think that there's an ongoing need for a standing, then you can keep the standing.
You have to populate it.
And you have to put membership on it.
But we could remove the standing committee now, and in the hereafter, put it back in as a standing committee.
If that's the will of the board, that's right.
Yeah. Do you have any feel where you stand as the city of having the answers to the questions we need to incorporate with our recommendations so far? Has that been addressed? I mean, has it been talked about?
I'm not in a position to be able to answer that question honestly and
We have a
fairly.
couple of members here to do. Aren't you on the environmental committee?
I don't think the environmental committee has looked at things like elevating, elevating buildings, but
But elevating the building codes to address the issues.
no, not to address things like the height of hose bibs or things like that to prevent backflow. No, we haven't looked at that.
Is there interest of doing that going forward? Because I think it would be helpful.
Well, let me try it this way. I don't think the city's planning commission is gonna, or environmental commission, is gonna pick that up on its own. If BPW wanted to say, here's a list of things that ought to be included because of our place, and wanting to protect BPW assets such as keeping salt water out of the sewer, we recommend that the city's building code be updated to include, storm drain, backflow preventers, and all kinds of other things. And incidentally, not of interest to BPW, but might be of interest to homeowners, who backflow preventers might help protect real estate also. And just a letter to them, they might pick it up with, but you'd have to be pretty specific about what it was you wanted. Because otherwise, you're going to have a lot of, I'll say environmentalists, with people drawing pipes and saying this is a backflow preventer, and it's not going to make it into the code real fast. So if the mitigation committee wanted to write that letter and, send it off as helpful advice that might protect our assets and also help homeowners, they'd probably give it some serious consideration.
Sounds like that might be a good use to wrap up the mitigation committee, to come up with those recommendations.
I mean, we've talked about shutting down the input to the sewage treatment plant to protect it. That's not, I've said that to the man on the street once or twice, that's not real positive, well received.
Yeah, it's not a plan.
But backflow prevention is to prevent the sewer system from backflowing into the house.
I understand that. You
So
could
you
throw
need-
that in a
you need a
memo and they
backflow
might think it's a good
preventer
idea.
Turn off.
Well, the committee is not properly set up right now to do that. And I'd have to find enough people that I would agree to come in and just do that information. I think we could I don't think we have to make the committee do it. I think we could do it as a board. And
The one thing I was going to say, so just the one clarification, so the committee could do the work and make a but they just have to recommend. So the letter would have to come from the board.
Yeah.
Right.
So to Press's point, whether the board just sends the letter or whether the board leans on the committee to prepare it is the will of the board, but the letter has to come from the board.
So, Press, do you think you have enough information?
Yeah, and I have other other board members that could review it before it goes out. So I don't think we need the committee to be reconstructed for that. That'd be cumbersome.
We have Mark here.
Yeah,
I think it can be done by the board members that are.
yeah.
I mean, you can, the other thing you can do is you can just, kind of what Mike was saying, you can disband the committee, create the ad hoc committee, and give that the first task of the ad hoc committee is picking
Yeah,
up.
but you'd have to put the committee together with the members and so forth. I think we could do it without reconstituting the committee. I think we have enough.
Richard, you have a motion?
What are my choices? Sounds like we've got
A,
a
one.
buffet here.
And Gamma. Well, it sounds like what I'm hearing is to disband the standing committee. And then we don't have to take any action, but down the line would be adopt an ad hoc committee as the time needs to be. And also not tied to this, that press and Bob and whoever else could draft a letter to the board that we could then use to send to the city. So there's only one action I think that's needed out of it, right? A motion to disband the standing committee.
Make a motion to disband the standing committee.
Just talking here.
Hello? I make a motion that we disband the standing mitigation committee.
Second,
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Now I'll work on getting a list together of items that we can consider for the board.
Okay.
Just a reminder, everybody to speak into the mic, because Jackie
Yes.
is taking minutes.
Oh, yes.
Not doing it, so. Jackie's on.
Oh,
Ah,
Jackie Dowry,
okay.
okay. Hey, Jackie. Next item, open forum general discussion on Tranquility at Breakwaters Development Agreement. Austin, Robin, and
Yeah,
Mike?
so us three can kind of tag team this one. The synopsis is the Tranquility at Breakwater is a parcel that sits behind the Oyster Cove development that will be accessed through the Orchard Plaza parcel off of Old Orchard Road. It is within our sewer service territory. And what's before you is a development agreement that encompasses everything that's in our form development agreement to provide sewer service to this parcel. There also was a letter provided to Ellen Rain earlier this week, which is part of section 4.2 of the charter, or 4.20 of the charter, which is to receive mayor and city council consent to be able to serve the parcel as part of the charter. So whatever happens today regarding a vote would be pending that action from mayor and city council.
Right, and so the motion would just be, if it were a motion to approve, it would be a motion to approve conditioned on city council granting its consent. And then that request is already out there.
Correct.
I had a question about the deposit amount.
Yes.
Did we talk about deposits being kind of insufficient? So do we want to change the amount?
So typically, the way we do this is we get a construction schedule from the developer, and then we implement those amounts into the development agreement. We can receive those and have GMB provide us what, from an RPR standpoint, the inspection piece would be. Being that this is only sewer, it's a very small section, and we are only taking over the gravity. For context, this sewer will actually, just like Oyster Cove, would flow into Sussex County system, utilizing an existing flow agreement that dates back to several years ago that was executed.
But to Barbara's point, we did change this. So based on the challenges that we have incurred in the past on the deposit, this section has been revised. And this section has actually been revised with the city. So while this development agreement is only for BPW utilities outside, going forward, what you'll see is if where there are development agreements with the city, that language has been changed and this language mirrors that. And so what this does is a couple things. The first point is that the amount of the deposit is going to be set based on the size of the project. And so that's going to be the first step, and it's based on estimates as approved by the BPW. Second part that we added is what you see at the end, which is, it says, any amounts not paid within 30-day period shall incur interest at the lesser of 8% or the maximum interest. And then, so now if they fall below the replenishment and we seek a request to replenish and they don't pay it, it starts to accrue interest. So we've made those changes.
Okay, thank you. I also had a question in section 7 about enforcement and 7.3 right of entry. It gives BPW access to all parts of the property undergoing development. And it says, or involving construction of any BPW improvements. Do you think they'll object to that?
They've already signed.
Oh, okay. So we would have a right to,
Correct.
okay.
And that's actually a pretty standard provision
Is that-
in these development agreements. So we see that often, and it's been accepted often.
And we will, because this parcel sits outside, does not receive water service, we will have to create a rate at a future date that would be conducive to a commercial outside the city sewer-only customer.
Can I speak to that for a second, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you have other examples of out-of-jurisdiction commercial customers already who you're already serving?
Just that are serving just sewer? Or
Yes,
no.
yes. So this would be a standalone.
Yep, this would be, there's two parcels that are actually being developed. The one that's under the development agreement is Tranquility of Breakwater. There is infrastructure that will be turned over to the Board of Public Works as part of that one. There's another one called Orchard Plaza, which is a medical facility that will sit on the front half of the adjacent parcel. That is actually building a system that will dump directly into a manhole. So they will own that system completely, so it's not a part of this development agreement. That will also have a rate that would be a sewer-only outside the city commercial customer. So those two parcels will be commercial parcels served by us with rates that would have to be established for them.
And just to clarify, both parcels, both properties are in the BPW sewer area. And so, which makes sense, but it's the BPW provides sewer, the county can't. It's our sewer area.
I was aware of that. Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I also know that it's unusual for, historically, for a property owner, developer, whomever, to receive only one of the utilities, in that à la carte mode business model, rather than you have to take the whole suite. So, and I'm aware of the adjacent Oyster Cove arrangement there.
Part of the question in this becomes where we have CPCNs and
Right.
where we have service areas.
Right.
Is it that uncommon though? I mean, because outside of the munis, DP&L and co-op provide
Correct.
electricity. Tidewater, Artesian provide water.
I think Tim was saying from our
From your
standpoint,
perspective,
not.
yeah, I'm not talking
Oh,
about.
I thought you
yeah.
said, I'm sorry.
No, not for the industry. I'm just talking about for
Yes.
for the BPW. Right.
Again, I mean, we can only provide water where we have a CPCN. We can always provide electric where we have a CPCN. We
Exactly.
can always provide sewer. So, it's not unheard of, and it's not unforeseeable that this situation would occur based on what those CPCNs
Right.
are.
All right, do I have a motion on item 10?
Make a motion that we accept this proposed developers agreement.
Conditioned on the city providing its prior consent under 4.20.
Yes.
You cut him off. He was going to get there.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay. Holiday issue, holiday policy. Austin?
Okay, so, if anybody has attended the city council meetings lately, one of the items for discussion was updating their holiday policy, and so we are doing the same so that we match, and that would be off on the same times. What we did is, we made a lot of adjustments similar to what the city did. We also made our own adjustments. We actually worked with Mike's firm. We were able to utilize all of the assets that Mike's firm brings to us. And so we had gone through this with his firm, staff. Everything's been looked at. What I'll tell you is the small adjustments that were made, for example, we took away the federal piece because most of the holidays we recognize as state. The only difference is the state has 2 floating holidays because they don't count President's Day as a holiday. So President's Day still is in ours as a holiday. We give 1 floating day. Again, this policy matches very similarly to what the city's policy is. Happy to answer any additional questions. We kind of cleaned up a lot of it too, so that there wasn't redundant sections in there. So happy to answer any questions.
Return Day, is that every year?
No, it's every other year, I believe.
So should that be amended to show that?
Isn't it?
No? Okay,
Because it's a specifically listed holiday.
okay. That was my only question.
For future, just outside of this, we'll be looking for approval of this or further discussion or any comments you may have. We also will be probably bringing a lot more items related to the handbook back, just to bring them up to snuff. And we'll be working with Mike's firm on that too.
So do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept this holiday modification.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, old business. Wastewater treatment facility, long-range plan and update. So just at an upper level, we've been meeting with the county. We are on the Rehoboth Beach agenda for July 8th to present to the commissioners of Rehoboth Beach to see what their appetite is for sharing, selling, leasing portion of their outfall to the county and Lewes BPW, which would get all of the treated effluent out of the entire canal length, and would be making use of an existing asset that is underutilized and would be the better, financial situation probably for everyone. So we stand by to stand by. I promise you, I know I've said it many times, we will have a workshop. We need to get through the July 8th meeting to find out which way we're going. So, Bill, if you can put that out to the public, we really, it's been too long, but there have been too many pieces moving behind the scenes, so, and we will get the public up to speed. And,
What's the time of that meeting, please?
yes, their meetings are in the morning.
Right.
We do not have the agenda out yet, so I think their meetings typically start at 10? 9? Yeah, the county is 10.
And we asked to be the first on the agenda so that we're not lagging.
But we do not know.
All right, that's good enough for planning purposes. Thank you.
Barbara, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, I don't think so. I know people would like to have another workshop. They'd like to know what's going on. And I wish that we had something that we could ask their opinion on. But as Tom, as you said, there are too many moving balls right now. we're just trying to work towards the best solution for Lewes.
All right? Poll to the public. Call to the press. Bill?
Just quickly, Austin, how many Donovan Smith homes have been hooked up so far?
I knew you were gonna ask that question. So they had the, trying to remember when. See if I have it. So this was on, as of Friday, June 14th, so it's a little bit out of date. There was 36 units connected to the sewer system.
And that's out of about 80.
Current units was, I want to say somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah.
But also a plug, you can come to our progress meeting on the 3rd. And we'll have an update on number of units, both on water and sewer.
Okay. And would you describe that project as ahead of schedule?
Oh, man. I think they're making really good progress. It seems like they're moving in the direction that services will start to be connected fairly sooner than what was originally expected. But we can probably contribute that to dry soils, which is kind of a double-edged sword because I know we're in a drought right now, but they're not fighting the dewatering issues that they were originally, which that was a very unexpected thing based off the original soil borings.
And are we talking water and sewer connections?
Yes. Well, right now, they're trying to coordinate them both the same, but the sewer got completed quicker than the water, so they're still I believe they're still building out the rest of the sewer main. I may be wrong with that, but the sewer got completed faster, so they're doing sewer services ahead of water services. So you'll see sewer get connected before water in most cases.
Okay. So Labor Day is just kind of a ballpark.
Yeah, we're throwing that out. You know, it could be it could bite me, but that's what our goal is, to see
Okay.
if we can get people connected by that.
Okay. And Tom, on the electrical, so how vulnerable is the electrical infrastructure? Is it something that residents should be concerned about? Is it something you're concerned about if we get a hurricane or a big event?
The problem now is that we're seeing 40, 50-inch rainstorms post-hurricanes. We're seeing, I mean, how many tornadoes have we had this year in Delaware? I mean, this is unusual. And so it's that type of susceptibility, but it's very spotty. And from an industry perspective, I can tell you, I'm very concerned about our infrastructure from the storm events, and also from the fact that it was designed for point to point, from main generating stations to loads. And that's not the way the system operates anymore. And so from an individual homeowner, if you are dependent on it, like on oxygen generators, you really should plan to have some sort of backup source. But that's just good practice in general. I may rue the day, but I don't foresee that, our entire distribution system is going to get wiped out here. But it all depends upon where the storm goes.
What specific things in the infrastructure are vulnerable? I mean, we can look at the wastewater treatment plant as an example. It's vulnerable to flooding. But as far as the electrical infrastructure, what is specifically is?
I mean, I'll share one story that came out of Florida, which was they had hardened their entire distribution system. They put steel poles in. And a hurricane came through as a Cat 5 hurricane, and every steel pole, almost to the one, fell over. There are circuits that still had wood poles, and they were like only a quarter of them lost. Because we thought we were doing something good, we were putting in higher strength poles, but they all failed at exactly the same set point because you design those. And the wooden poles have a tremendous distribution curve, and they didn't. So, we're blessed, we have wood poles. But even undergrounding utilities does not resolve this when you come down to flooding issues, so.
But I think it's fair to say that we're not any worse than anybody
No,
else.
no,
We're not, this is
Right.
not only statewide, it's national and, international.
And
So we're
it's
not
not-
any worse case.
And coastal is worse, however, riparian, if you live along a river valley, that's actually where some of the bigger outages have occurred.
Historically, most of our storms come from a nor'easter. I've been in with our guys during blizzards, and we've only had a couple outages, and the board invested a lot of money in the early 2000s into the system. When they moved the substation from Burton Avenue to Schley Avenue, they put a lot of time and energy. We've put stainless steel transformers on the beach side. Again, they're overhead versus underground. Like Tom said, you can get into the aesthetically pleasing. Our guys, obviously for them, they can identify and fix above ground pretty easily. It's not to say underground's any different, it's just that's what they've known to use. But I think that the most vulnerable piece that, everybody was aware of was when we took that planned outage happened because we have a single feed in the town. So if you look at, all the areas that you could potentially have a storm happen or what if, that feed from Delmarva, if you lose that feed, the town is dark. And we saw that as a representation from that outage. And that's things that we keep in the back of our mind.
And I don't think either of us mentioned, we actually had a meeting with Delmarva Power and Light as a follow-up. And so I think we're seeing some movement on that side, but it's still going to be a very large cost to crack. So,
And just for the sake of the context is, at the end of the day, recognizing these storms, and to Press's point, the board not being any different than, in any different situation than anybody else. But should we be proactive and start sitting down and thinking about these things? So it's not so much that there's a specialized issue as it is of being proactive and thinking forward.
in fact,
I'm sorry.
just one more thing along those lines is if you look back over just this year, how many outages have been outside of the BPW territory? And other than our attacks by terroristic squirrels, we've had no outages during any of the major storms.
You may have had a limb drop and knock a service out, but
But not. So.
not dropping a circuit.
So the line crews has done a great job of upkeeping the system. Certain amount of his luck. And if we could just get rid of the squirrels, we'd be in much better shape.
Last
to
question.
that.
What kind of qualifications are you looking for in people who might be on this committee or might work with you on this committee?
Electrical distribution, electrical transmission, electrical generation. And there's one more question you want to ask.
How was the Grand Canyon?
No.
One other thing that is proactive that Austin has accomplished that's not being mentioned very often is the cutting of trees throughout the town well in advance of any afterthought of now, we should have done that before. It was clearing the lines ahead of time in an organized fashion.
Now, the question we should have brought up more detail on is that, so Friday, we applied for the funding for Park and Fourth, the extended funding. And we expect to hear back in when on that?
September is the next quarterly WEAC meeting.
So, we are moving forward on that, but the paperwork is all in.
Okay.
And now it's,
So you won't really have a timetable until you find out about that
well,
funding, right?
we've got the planning and stuff like,
Yeah.
in process, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Do we have a need for executive session, Austin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, so then call the public portion of the meeting to close, and we're going to go into executive session.
We need a motion for that.
Yeah,
I make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second?
favor?
Aye.
Can I vote against it? No.